How do we define heroism? Whom do we typically celebrate as a hero? What kinds of action do we deem heroic? How does the idea of heroism differ between different cultures, or even within the same culture at different times in its history? How can we portray heroic actions and characteristics in a medium such as instrumental music, without explicit text to guide our interpretation of its sounds and patterns? For the first decade and a half of the 19th century, Napoleon Bonaparte stood at the center of European events, and the conventional story of Napoleon's achievements includes no small portion of myth-making. In this module, we will learn not only about what he accomplished, but perhaps more importantly, what he represented to different groups in Europe during his own time, and most of all, what he represented to Beethoven. We will also consider Beethoven's place in Viennese society, a talented musician with a growing handicap, an artist trying to negotiate the most lucrative returns for his creative output, and a commoner who happily exploited people's mistaken assumption that he was of noble birth, even as he deeply resented many of the actual aristocrats on whom he depended for patronage. We will examine the details of his hearing loss during these years, and begin to survey what it meant for Beethoven, a political liberal, to live and work in Vienna, which at times was occupied by French armies. Also with regard to Beethoven's life, we will consider his relations with women, and the tension between his desire for love and marriage on the one hand, and his devotion to his art on the other. And as with Napoleon, there's no shortage of myth to separate from reality. With the topic of women in Beethoven's life, we come to one of the most powerful and enduring mysteries of his biography. Who is the woman he addressed as his immortal beloved? Turning to Beethoven's music, we now enter the second of his three style periods. In semantically neutral terms, his middle period, but often labeled more evocatively as his heroic style. He wrote many of his best-known works during these years, and in each case, we will consider the features and patterns that made this music sound so dramatic, so expansive, so revolutionary compared to the music that came before. We will start small with his 5 variations in D major on Rule Britannia, Werke ohne Opus 79, to think about which characteristics the label heroic accurately describes, and at the other end of the spectrum, which characteristics that label might downplay or miss entirely. Lastly, we'll turn from the notes to the not notes, how Beethoven's genius lies not only in the sounds he employed, but also in the silences. We will refine our vocabulary for comparing and contrasting significant pauses in music, paying attention to the differences among structural, dramatic, and pictorial silences in music, the different ways Beethoven could use silence to portray or intensify emotion, and the different ways Beethoven incorporated dramatic silences within themes at their first appearance.